For engraving Kentucky rifles, I use basically 3 tools, and one of them is used the most extensively, and the other 2 are used just for small effects and borders. I've drawn the points of these so you can discuss how they're sharpened. Certainly the workhorse is the square graver, which cuts a V line. I've tried to show an isometric view of it here. Sharpened on an angle to produce a sort of diamond-shaped front. A rectangular cross-section graver, a flat chisel type, is used for cutting some of the borders, particularly some of those zigzag borders. And here you see an isometric view of that. And I sharpen it from both sides as a cold chisel. This is a cross-sectional view of it. And actually, it usually has just a little bit of a heel on each side right at the point. And the other graver that I use on occasion is a round bottom graver that cuts a radius cut. All the cutting of engraving I do, whether it's in steel, brass, or silver, is with the chasing hammer. I don't do any push graving. Some early makers did appear to have used push graving. The majority of the originals that I've handled show the cuts from the hammer, and often the very deep cuts that characterize a lot of Kentucky rifle engraving. This is my square graver that I cut most of the patterns with, the V lines. This is a little larger one. I have a smaller one also, but this one it shows the angles better. This is the back side. You can see the heel cut on it. And I have a smaller one that's much finer. You can see the shiny point there where it crosses the diamond. Now, these gravers are heftier than the commercial ones you buy, unless you buy a commercial, very large commercial one and grind it down to a taper, which is possible, of course, to make it that way. This is the chisel point rectangular graver for cutting some of the bright cut Bahrain style borders, sharpened from 2 sides down to point. And this is an example. They're ground round on the end and then cut on the diagonal, so you can see the shiny surface there shows the face of that, and the back side of that is a radius. And the very small, very fine line showing at the end of that is that little shiny spot is the very fine heel that gives it the ability to make a turn in the cut. So I use the stone pretty much like a file, as though it were a file, keeping a small amount of oil on it to face off the graver. Then on the back, I just round over to the heel to produce the heel. On occasion, if the graver is dragging too much, I also cut a heel right on the very bottom edge and run it up, not to interfere with the V shape at the face. I don't want to interfere with that, not getting it that far, but stop that killing of the edge just behind the V shape. These operations are tough on your sharpening stones, tend to want to gully them out. And so I use my large wood cutting chisels in circular motion and sharpening to try to help dress the stones down, to help keep them maintained. But these stones, if your Arkansas gets too rutted and so forth, you can take a composite carver under them and just work slowly and steadily and grind it right back down to where you need. And occasionally cleaning them with, I just use something like borax and water, standard borax soap, and scrub the stone down to get rid of the accretions. This is my flat graver, the one rectangular and cross section, used for bright cut. In this case, I'm using a file to sharpen it back some. It's a little too soft, and I'm getting it prepared for retempering. Most gravers are a little hard for working straight on with the file, so a carborundum stone. Occasionally, the emery-powered grindstone can be used, but great care has to be taken not to heat it up and ruin the temper. And it's a fairly delicate operation. I would advise beginners to work with the stones, with the handheld stones, rather than getting involved a lot with the emery grinding until you know exactly what angles you need and can judge those by eye. There are several devices for sharpening that are on the market to hold the gravers at specific angles, and I've never used those. I just sharpen it based on experience and the angles that give me the best work by eyesight.